Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, a spotlight podcast. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
All right, so say it with me, Scrapfest. It's just fun to say the word Scrapfest. Scrapfest. All right, so if you're in mid-Michigan, you know that ScrapFest12 is coming this summer, led by Friedland Industries. So here to share the Scrapfest story is the Vice President of Friedland, Mr. Joel Conn. Welcome back to the show, Joel.
Hey, how's it going, Chris?
Not too bad.
Glad to be back.
Excellent. So I'm excited about this year's venue and the show and everything, and we're going to get into the dirty of it, but it's a great event, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about what this year is going to hold. But let's start a little bit by talking about Friedland Industries. So what is Friedland Industries? Where are you located? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Friedland Industries is a industrial scrap management and processing facility. So we process all ferrous, non-ferrous metals. So ferrous has iron in it. Non-ferrous doesn't have iron. All grades of paper. We do some plastics and some electronics as well, but mostly metals and fiber. We're located on the corners of Center and Maple Streets in Old Town Lansing. We've been there since 1886. And for people that don't know where we are located, even when I tell them that, I tell them behind Bruce Pets, and they know.
So. Right on. So when you do drive by Bruce Pets, you've got, pretty good looking fencing around there, but depending on how tall the piles are, you can see some scrap stuff over that, and you're like, what the heck's going on over there? But
it's beautiful.
But it's essentially, massive recycling, right? You're taking old wasted stuff and you're transforming it and getting it out of our world and to be repurposed.
Correct. So we bale, package, all these different commodities, because that's what they are, as commodities. They're traded on exchanges, right?
Okay.
So, and we send them to mills and foundries, and they remelt or they repulp them into, new raw materials for the manufacturing process.
Wonderful. Okay. So 1886. So you guys are a pretty new company.
Pretty new.
That's amazingly old. That's like right after the Civil War.
Yeah. It's like 130 some years. Yep. So it was founded by my wife's great-grandfather. So I'm technically fourth generation. So many companies that have been around that long are usually on fifth or sixth.
Right.
Her grandparents just had kids at later age. So
right on.
Yeah, like 39. So,
okay. Yeah. Got it. So, a big, long-standing family-run organization. Congratulations. That's great. So Scrapfest is a thing. So talk a little bit about how was Scrapfest kind of founded? So
it was founded, it's ScrapFest12, but it was, 14 years ago because of the pandemic, took 2 years out.
Right.
So it was actually founded by David Such from Such Media, which is now Render Studios.
Okay.
He came to Freeland Industries with the idea of doing a scrap art metal competition and wanted to know if we could help get that started. And we just kind of ran with it, and it is what it is today. So
what is it today? What exactly is the process for the listeners who don't know?
Yeah. So it is a scrap art metal competition, but it has grown into a festival. So now there's, eco art vendors, there's live music, there's food. It used to be a part of the Festival of Sun and Moon. I think that's what it was called. But because of its popularity, it grew into its own festival. So the process for all the teams that compete in it, about 2 months out, so actually it's this month, is collection day. So the teams there's about 21 of them, I think, this year. They collect up to 500 pounds of scrap metal from our yard. And I don't know how they do it, but they look at everything on the ground and they say to themselves, I think I can use that to make this. And a lot of them do it just when they're in the yard. They don't know what they're making until they're in the yard. And
they'll get inspiration. They'll see a clock wheel or something. Like, oh, hey, that's cool.
And I see them collect all this metal. It gets weighed up. And then they get a month to create a work of art. And then at the festival, the pieces are on display all up Turner Street. There's first, second, third place prize money. There's a panel of judges that does this. There's a People's Choice Award. and they're sold. So that I think is probably the biggest prize for most of the artists is when their piece sells.
Right. So these guys, okay, so they're all scheduled to just show up at the yard, and they get 500 pounds of. They just say, "I want that. I want this." They're digging around, picking stuff out. They put it on a scale. It's like, 527 pounds. We got to lose something.
They lose some of it. Yeah.
And then they leave with 500 pounds worth of stuff and go to wherever they create.
Yeah, most of them go to their own workshops that they might have in their backyard. They might rent out a space, that type of thing. I mean, these people are coming from mostly the state of Michigan, but we have teams from surrounding states like Illinois and Ohio, that kind of thing.
Right. So they disappear with all this junk, like scrap, right?
Scrap, not junk. That's literally a 4-letter word in the scrap industry. Yeah,
my apologies.
None of it's waste.
Right. Okay, and then they have 1 month.
Right.
To turn all of this scrap material and turn it into some sort of a physical art form. And then it's wheeled into Turner Street and they shut it down and people can just walk around and grab a drink and some food and see all of this amazing stuff. Yeah. Share with me some of your favorites. Like what might people see if they see, how big is a 500-pound piece of scrap art?
Yeah. I mean, you will honestly see pieces from maybe a bench to a fire pit to kinetic type of things. So we have an artist named Ivan Eiler who tends to utilize bicycle chains to make parts move, and his pieces tend to be the fan favorites.
Right.
He doesn't always win because there's really talented people in this competition.
Right.
But I mean, the pieces can be as tall as the ceiling. And
right. 10, 12. Yeah. Is he the guy who had it was an elephant head?
Yeah.
Was that okay?
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, there was an elephant head that probably stood 10, 12 feet tall, and it had the big ears and the skull and the trunk, and then there was a crank, right? And so the kids would come up and just kind of crank this thing, and the head would move around, the ears would kind of flap, the trunk would go up and down. So that's him. That's the guy.
He's got his own shop up in St. John's next to Ryan's Roadhouse. So if you're familiar with that. But yeah, Ivan was actually in a Netflix series called Metal Shop Masters. The first season, I won't ruin the place that he got for everyone, but he did well.
Okay.
And now he's got a huge following on Instagram, and he's got sponsors. Actually, one of his sponsors is Lincoln Electric, and they're sponsoring Scrapfest.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, they're providing welding wire and personal protection equipment for all the teams. So it's pretty cool.
So are the teams? Are as many teams welcome to come as want to sign up, or is there a cutoff as to how many you can do?
There is a cap. So over the years, we had to cap it, and then it's also gotten more competitive as a result. As more teams have found out about it, they have to submit, pictures of prior, pieces that they've done, that type of thing. So, as the years go on, the quality of the pieces that you see on Turner Street have gotten better, I think.
That's great. And you mentioned that they're for sale. Who tends to buy these things? Do you keep track of that? I mean,
anyone and everyone. Yeah. I mean, we post them online. So I know some go out of state, but most of them stay, within the state of Michigan, I feel like.
Have I seen? I feel like some of the major employers have stepped up and mounted these things permanently, either on their corporate headquarters or out in front or in a park or something like that. Is that where they tend to go?
Yep. So, what's the name of the company? It's in Rio Town. It's Hope Park.
Okay.
Andrew Sandstead, his piece that won 1 year is placed out there. Man, it's going to bother me the name of it's a financial institution, but anyways.
That's great. So they bought it and donated it to a park.
Correct. Yeah, it's right out front in Rio Town on Washington.
Got it. Yep. And who are the judges?
There's a panel of judges. It changes, pretty much every year, but they tend to have some art background or metal welding background to them, and they judge it based upon multiple different criteria.
Got it. So you mentioned the pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So was there simply no Scrapfest?
Yeah, that was it. Just no Scrapfest.
Yeah. I guess it's hard to do that kind of online.
Yeah, exactly.
Over Zoom.
I mean, you can buy the pieces online, but it's definitely in-person immersion type of event. It's pretty cool.
All right. So we're recording this very early May, and you say this is the month that what is happening? Are they picking up the...
So, yeah, they're collecting the scrap this month. The festival takes place Friday evening, July 8th.
Okay.
And then most of the day on July 9th.
Got it.
And this year we're actually... doing a 8K run and walk to coincide with the festival to help raise additional funds for the charity that we're supporting this year, which is the Davies Project.
Got it. Okay. So this is a fundraiser.
Oh, yeah. So 10% of the proceeds from the sales of all the art pieces actually will support the Davies Project this year. 20% goes to help run Scrapfest every year, and then 70% of the proceeds actually go back to the artists. So that's why I say, like that's the win for most of them is selling the piece. So yeah, 100% of the net proceeds from the race will benefit the Davies Project, and it's called the Great Scrap Run. I just create a run sign up page for it. I hope it looks good. I'm still adding stuff to it, but you can sign up right now. Yeah.
Right. And you do some running yourself, right?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I've done a couple marathons.
Yes. So, so how can people learn more about Scrapfest?
So ScrapFest12.com. So
it's easy.
Yeah. So we actually, Freeland, we actually have the name ScrapFest trademarked. So we own the name.
Got it. Actually, I think that was almost a little footnote of controversy the last time I interviewed you a few years back. Were you trying to get that, or were you bumping up against someone else?
It ended up going away, but there was a scrapbooking competition in Canada that was utilizing the name Scrapfest, but they didn't have it trademarked.
Got it.
So, but yeah.
Okay.
But they can go to scrapfest.com. It's got a Facebook, Instagram page.
Okay.
And the Great Scrap Run is on run sign up. So.
Got it. So, are there other competitions like this that you've come up against, or is this unique in your understanding?
Yeah, so it is pretty unique. We have had other towns try to recreate this. So I know the city of Dearborn did one year.
Okay.
They had a different spin on it. It wasn't the exact format of ours, but we helped them put it on. And actually, some of the artists that participate in Scrapfest actually supported them and partook in their event as well. I don't know for certain if it's still going on.
Right.
Then obviously there's, the really big festival in Michigan in Grand Rapids. There's Art Prize. So, I mean, that touches base on a broader range of visual arts.
Sure.
As where ours just focuses on scrap metal.
But I mean, yours is more of a competition. I mean, Art Fest is a competition. But, I mean, this is all about scrap. This is coming in, getting weighed. I mean, this is a true competition. You get these materials that you get to pick at this weight, and everyone's kind of doing the same thing at the same time.
Right.
Art Fest is a wonderful, wonderful organization and event, but this is definitely unique. So, in research for this interview, I was really I was pleasantly surprised and at how much community involvement Friedland really, embarks on. I mean, there's really a laundry list and a whole page dedicated to why giving back is important to Friedland. So talk to me about kind of where those roots kind of came from. I mean,
yeah, well, it all I guess, if you went on the web page, my brother-in-law made the webpage, but he touches base, I think, on how David Friedland, the founder of Friedland, back when people used to heat their homes with coal, you had to buy it by the ton. And he used to buy it, break it down into little bundles, and people could actually scrap metal and pay for their coal that way. To heat their home, or they could just buy it,
Right.
So that was one way that he gave back to his community. Today, Friedland, we support a lot of events, whether it's community recycling days. We just had a bunch of them this past weekend. sponsoring school robotics teams. Waverly robotics team is one that we sponsor every year. We give them all the metal that they need to make their robot. And I believe they're actually going to be at Scrapfest this year with their robot for kids to play with. So,
Nice.
And just financial donations, that type of thing. And a lot of our employees are involved in community boards and committees. I mean, that's how I met you, was on the Meridian EDC board. And soft brag, but I was the Dapper Dad winner for the Dapper Dads Challenge for the Sparrow Foundation. So I raised over $28,000 for women's health needs in mid-Michigan. So that was cool.
That's right. I forgot you won that.
Yeah,
I knew you were in that.
It's kind of funny. You look at I've got this big trophy in our office on display, and you see Freeland Industries name, and then it's like Delta Dental, Raymond Group, Delta Dental, Accident Fund, Jackson National, all these financial institutions, that can write the big checks, and then there's Friedland Industries kind of right there in the middle. So
right on.
And how I raised a lot of that money was actually from scrap metal, was from customers donating their loads of scrap. So instead of me writing a check to them, I did it to the Sparrow Foundation. So it worked out pretty well.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, usually Scrapfest usually these types of events require a lot of labor and people, like partners, right? Do you have any, benefactors or partners that are consistently there to help you orchestrate Scrapfest?
Yeah. So our employees.
Okay.
Yeah. We pay a lot of overtime with helping move sculptures when they usually go to like a warehouse to be stored before the event. We move them all up and down Turner. We have sponsors that support us every year. The Rathbun Agency, Message Makers have been continued supporters. Actually, First National Bank of Michigan is sponsoring this year, and like I said, Lincoln Electric is a supporter this year as well. So, and then Freeland Industries, we kind of bear the brunt of putting a lot of it on, and my brother-in-law, Mike Bass, he's the executive director for Scrapfest, and Heather Mossing, she used to work for the Old Town Commercial Association.
Okay.
She helps put it on. And just all the businesses in Old Town and the Old Town Commercial Association have been continued supporters. So
that's fantastic. Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, Joel, it's been really great having you on here. So is there anything else we need to know about Scrapfest before it's upon us?
No, I think we touched on pretty much everything. Scrapfest.com, the great scrap run, on-run sign-up. That's pretty much about it.
That's great. Yeah. All right. We've been talking to Vice President of Friedland Industries, Mr. Joel Conn, about Scrapfest12 that's coming on July 8th and 9th.
Correct.
In Old Town.
Lansing,
Michigan. Congratulations on another great year, and thanks for joining me today, Joel.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Appreciate it.